Hello everyone, Master Venus here, and welcome to something that I'm trying, but it might not ever work out ever again. I am, as people know, primarily a doubles player. I primarily play VGC and doubles in general. I have, as of before today, never dipped my toes into singles. So here it goes. Might be a mess. Might be something that I actually am pretty decent at. But today, over the next couple weeks, I will be uploading singles battles under YCL Season 9. So, first singles league, had to get that out of the way, so I'm not the best. I'm not the most knowledgeable person of singles. So, yeah, here we go. So, I have a certain way that I'm probably going to be doing draft breakdowns in the future. Singles or doubles, just draft breakdowns in the future. So, thanks to the new DLC's Synchro mechanic, I can kind of just show off Pokemon, be the Pokemon. But, yeah. It's not a new concept to use Synchro Pokemon as a draft breakdown. Plus, also, it's not the best setup. Like, I don't have things on the screen. But it just takes a lot of editing on my part, and I don't think I'm ready for that amount of editing as of yet. As pretty obvious right now by me using a laptop to record rather than a capture card. But anyway, introduction out of the way. Overall, I had, I don't remember, I think it was 10th out of 14 or 16. 16, I'm pretty sure it was. So, pretty classic Phoenix placement of either middle of the draft or towards the back end. So, yeah. So, since I didn't really know what to pick at the start of the draft, considering I'm no singles veteran, I chose something that I knew was probably going to be really versatile and something that I could work off as a baseline, which is why I first picked Mew. That's it, there we go. So, Mew is a pure Psychic type Pokemon with the ability to Synchronize. An ability that can come into play sometimes, but it's not the best ability in the world. It doesn't help it be able to take on threats that it wouldn't be able to. Otherwise, it can help versus Pokemon that it normally wouldn't, being able to put something else to sleep, being able to burn a non-fire type, being able to poison a non-poison type, if they go for Toxic or Will-O-Wisp. But honestly, Mew's main gimmick is the fact that it basically learns every single TM in the game. It gets Spikes, it gets Stealth Rock, it gets Toxic Spikes. Sadly, Defog isn't in the game, so it sadly doesn't have any way of getting rid of entry hazards. It has plenty of momentum control with Flip Turn, Volt Switch, U-Turn. It also has Baton Pass, but in this league it's illegal to switch with Baton Pass using stat increases. So I can't say set up a Sword Stance and Baton Pass to another Pokemon. So yeah, Mew also has many ways to set up. It can use Sword Stance, as I previously mentioned. It can use Nasty Claw, Calm Mind, Bulk Up. Pretty much anything is possible in Mew. If you think of a TM, it can learn it, so it can mostly do anything. Base 100 across the board allows it to be pretty versatile in most of the things it does. Pure Psychic type is... it's okay typing. It's not the best type in the world, but it's far from the worst. So, in my personal opinion, I feel like Mew is a pretty good start Pokemon for a draft, especially with someone who has almost zero idea on what to do for singles. So, yeah. And I kind of hope that was okay enough for a draft breakdown of a singles Pokemon with someone who doesn't really know. So, yeah. After Mew, I kind of wanted to do something that I don't know why I picked this Pokemon over what I wanted to plan and pick. I was just like, this thing gets this move, this thing gets another move, this thing can be dangerous, I want to use it. Plus, it kind of pairs well with Mew as to what Pokemon they each counter on their part. So, I drafted Excadrill. The Sand Abuser himself, who Naruto runs, apparently. I didn't know this Pokemon Naruto runs. So yeah, Excadrill. This Pokemon fires off pretty powerful moves from its base 135 attack stat in the sand, which it can either increase the power of its rock, steel, or ground moves with Sand Force, or double its speed with Sand Rush. Plus also its third ability is not even bad in itself. Mold Breaker allows it to use EQ versus levitating Pokemon, and Pokemon that are just immune to ground in general, like Orthworm. I don't think anyone even picked Orthworm though. But Mold Breaker is a pretty niche ability that can also be used to great effect. It had the two moves that I was really talking about were Stealth Rocks and Rapid Spin. So I can hazard control the game with Rapid Spin, and it also is able to set Stealth Rocks itself with its pretty decent speed stat. It's slower than Mew, but also can sometimes be bulkier than Mew due to its better defensive typing. I mean, Ground Steel is a pretty good typing, offensively and defensively. This thing with Sand can pretty much do a lot of sweeping if I can set a Sword Stance up. Plus, Rapid Spin also isn't just for utility, as it helps increase Excadrill's speed, which can only be taken advantage of if the Sand isn't in effect. So basically giving yourself a plus 1 speed boost isn't the worst thing in the world. Plus also, being a Steel type, it generally has a good defensive profile with its pretty good HP stat, though its defense is kind of lacking, but it's more of a glass cannon offensive Pokemon anyway, so you don't really want to be investing in this thing's bulk too much, I feel. But who am I to speak? I'm a doubles player. This thing, normally in doubles, you pair it with a Sand Setter and just go ham with Rock Slides, Iron Heads, High Horsepowers. But at least the good thing in singles is I don't have to worry about partnering with stuff like Earthquake and Surf and all that. But yeah, Excadrill is a pretty good offensive Pokemon that I feel like can maybe do some sweeping. Maybe it'll do me well, maybe it'll just be a burden, but yeah. That is Excadrill. So, the next Pokemon I drafted was just one thing I knew I really, really wanted to draft. It's a Pokemon that I've seen have incredible play in singles. It's been OU, I don't know if that even matters at all, but this Pokemon is a classic stereotype of a bulky water. I chose Suicune. Man, this thing is actually kind of big. Anyway, Suicune is... This thing's also very fast. Anyway, but yeah. Suicune is the definition of bulky water. It brings bulk, more general bulk to my team with resistances to fire and steel. Which, I mean, steel. Why am I saying steel? This steel isn't really a common offensive type. But having a fire resist with Excadrill, I feel like, is a good thing. Plus, this thing could switch into powerful hits as a pretty generally bulky Pokemon with base 150 defense and special defense, and a pretty good HP stat. Plus, also, this thing is actually kind of fast with base 85, as well as being something that can actually dish out some good hits with its base 90 special attack. Its abilities are admittedly kind of lackluster. Inner Focus, I'm not sure what Inner Focus would actually do in singles, but maybe it'll have some uses. And then Pressure, which for Suicune itself is actually pretty decent, as it allows it to act as a wall of pressure stalling, so it can kind of like lower the PP of moves like Close Combat or Hydro Pump, so it can kind of whittle down at the opponents, which, I mean, from the way my team's playing so far, it kind of looks like that's my goal, whittle down my opponents with passive damage. Speaking of passive damage, Suicune is one of the few water types that still has access to Scald this generation, so it can burn things, and yeah, it also has a reliable water move that isn't Surf. I mean, Surf isn't bad by any means, but having the ability to burn opponents, especially physical attackers, is incredible, as it allows you to tank more hits versus them and kind of wall them off easier. Suicune also isn't just a passive tank. It gets access to Calm Mind, so it can set up on things that it walls, so it can kind of set up for a sweep. It also has decent coverage moves in Ice Beam and Air Slash. I don't think it also gets Shadow Ball, and has decent utility moves with Snarl, and I guess Tailwind. I'm not sure how good... I feel like that's just my doubles talking there, just saying, ooh, and Tailwind, ooh, Snarl. Just, like, generally, I just feel like this Pokemon is a very utility-based Pokemon that can sweep if given the chance to. So, yeah. Also, I love this Pokemon in general. Suicune, probably my favorite of the legendary beasts. But, yeah. On to our next Pocket Monster. So, I know no matter which draft you're ever doing, singles or doubles, you need to do two, in my opinion, best cores in the game, being a Fire, Water, Grass core and a Steel, Fairy, Dragon core. So the next Pokemon I picked was to work with that core and also to kind of work well with the synergistic of my team. I'm looking for a Sand team, and a Fairy type that is immune to Sandstorm is an Amorous Fairy because of Overcoat. A sec. Stupid Synchro Machine. There we go. An Amorous Fairy. This thing is a Fairy Flying type, which is honestly a pretty good defensive typing. It can switch into Grass moves, it can switch into Dragon moves, it can switch into Ground moves, it can switch into Fighting moves. It can also switch into Bug if that's what you prefer. But yeah, Enamorous Firion is a very bulky Pokemon. Well, it's not very bulky, but it's pretty bulky with pretty over 100 in defense and special defense. I'm not sure the base stats itself, but it also has an incredible base 135 special attack stat. So it's going to be hitting hard with those Moonblasts, those Spring Storms, and also its other coverage moves like Earthquake and Mystical Fire. I'm pretty sure it also gets Healing Wish, so it can act as a pretty good support Pokemon as well as a bulky Pokemon. The main reason, as I said, it was here is because of Overcoat. It's a Fairy type which won't get affected by the potential Sandstorm that my Sand setter will be able to set because it has Overcoat, which means it doesn't get chipped by Sandstorm. It's also a really nice check into things that spam Spore or Sleep Powder. I feel like this Pokemon's just going to be a defensive wall. I think it can also set up with stuff like Calm Mind. I'm not too sure the logistics of this Pokemon. This is the thing on my team that I'm just like, I pick you because I think you're good. I don't know if this thing is actually any good. But yeah. It also has a snake on its back, which is kind of cool. And yeah, this Pokemon can be very defensive. Only downside is it's kind of slow. Being very slow, I don't know if it affects a wall. I mean, a fast wall is probably pretty decent, but I feel like a slow wall can also be kind of working. As I said, it has good coverage moves, so it can sweep, it can tank, it can fill the role of a cleric or support Pokemon. So I feel like it's a pretty good pick to pick early on, as I feel like it might be a good Pokemon. I'm not sure, though. So yeah, let's move on to my next Pokemon. So my next Pokemon kind of was a kind of like pick that I'm not sure what to think about. It was to kind of set something up later that I'll talk about, a Pokemon that I specifically set up later. But yeah. This is a lower tier Pokemon in singles. Like this thing is worth 4 points when the highest point is 16. In doubles, this thing is incredible. But in singles, it's not the best. I feel like I mainly wanted to use this Pokemon, mainly just due to the fact of it being so good in doubles. But we're going to see how it does in singles, because I drafted in DDD Female. And it's shiny, because the only DDD Female I had is my shiny one. But I guess most people don't care. Struck the stuff. Anyway, in DDD sets Psychic Terrain, which means it can block any form of priority against my team, which I feel like having the ability to just stop priority for Indeedee and also any other Pokemon itself is amazing. It immediately gives it a immunity to Sucker Punch. Other moves like Thunderclap from Raging Ball, like E-Speed, some stuff like Dragonite, Lucario, and Arcanine. Like it has so much utility just to block any form of priority. It completely walls off Prankster users as an option. Like I feel like and also just terrain control in general. Like grassy terrain is a pretty decent terrain as it just heals. So getting rid of some Pokemon's potential passive recovery is also really nice. Plus this Pokemon is no slack either. It has a pretty decent special attack stat, a decent speed stat, a pretty good, respectable special bulk. Only downside is it's very physically frail. This Pokemon can kind of die to any good physical hit. But the main logistics of Pokemon is it's probably going to be a Cleric. I know it gets Healing Wish. I don't know anything else that it really gets that it would be desirable in doubles. Sorry, singles. Because you're not going to be using Follow Me in singles. That's for sure. But yeah. In DD, it's a low tier Pokemon that's kind of just going to be used as a utility / Cleric Pokemon maybe. I'm not sure what it does, but I picked it because in DDD Male went, and I wanted in DDD Male's one thing, and in DDD Female also gets that thing, which I'll talk about it later on when I get to the Pokemon that helps abuse it. But also this thing, looking back on it now, it allows Mew to run Expanding Force, so Mew can become a pretty offensively threatening Pokemon with the ability to spam Expanding Force, which in singles is also really, really strong. So yeah, there is indeed. Which also gets, I think, alright coverage moves. I think it gets a fairy move, I'm not sure. Alright, halfway through the draft, I really wanted to finish off my, get going with the other end of my Steel Dragon Fairy, Fire Water Grass Force. So I wanted a really good defensive pivoting fire type with decent enough utility as well as also offensive pressure. It was between this Pokemon and fellow legendary beast Entei. But I ended up going with this Pokemon in particular being Arcanine. Oops. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, Arcanine. So, Arcanine has Intimidate, meaning it can lower the attack stat of the Pokemon that it's going in versus, which means it helps improve its physical bulk immensely. It also gets things like Will-O-Wisp, which means it can burn opposing Pokemon easier than Suicune spamming Scald. It also gets Justified and Flash Fire, so you can kind of punish Fire and Dark moves that are incoming to your Pokemon, which I feel like for Excadrill and Mew, that is going to be really nice, as it allows me to switch this thing into Dark moves, it allows me to switch it into Fire moves. And Fire is a really good all-around type, as it's good defensively, it's good offensively, and paired with Arcanine's good all-around stats, it can kind of be versatile in that way. It can be fast, it can be bulky, it can be physical, it can be special, it can be a utility Pokemon, or it can be an offensive sweeper. It can mostly do anything. What Arcanine does in doubles is exactly the same thing as singles, but this is singles, so I'm going to try and pry away from doubles. But Arcanine, I feel like, is a really good pivot Pokemon that can just switch in, lower the attack of some Pokemon, mainly physical Pokemon, kind of deter things, go offensive if it needs to be with its many coverage moves of like Play Rough, Wild Charge, Crunch. It also has the utility of Extreme Speed, meaning it can kind of, if I don't set Psychic Terrain, I can kind of just like pick off low HP Pokemon with it. It gets Howl for setup, which isn't the best setup move. Like, it doesn't get Swords Dance, it doesn't get it doesn't get Dragon Dance, it doesn't get much in terms of setup, but it's still Arcanine at the end of the day. You can't go wrong with Pokemon with BST that rivaling legendaries. So yeah, that is the fire type of my Fire Wargrass Fort in Arcanine. Okay, now I'm gonna have to get the last 5 Pokemon in. Let's get the last 5 Pokemon boxes. Let me get these 5 in. Sorry. Alright. Alright, next up is one of the Pokemon that I was talking about when I was talking about Psychic Terrain abuse. This being Grafaiai, which is a normal poison type, and can I just say this Pokemon is very ugly. I don't care if you love this thing's ugly. But yeah, this is the II Pokemon Grafaiai, and the main thing I was talking about with this thing is Unburden. If you don't know what Unburden does, if its item is either used or lost, it doubles its speed. Now, this Pokemon is fast on its own with base 110 speed, but this Pokemon also can get outsped by things, which Unburden prevents. And yeah, it gets set up like Sword Stance, so yeah, it kind of just sets up and maybe sweeps things with its limited coverage moves. It also has utility with Prankster, so I can use like Parting Shot. It has amazing momentum with U-Turn and also the previously mentioned Parting Shot. It can set weathers, if that even comes into effect at all. Like, I can set Sun, I can set Rain. I can also use Scary Face, slow down opposing Pokemon. It's also a grounded poison type, so I can get rid of Toxic Spikes, which I feel like having a grounded poison type in draft is really good. Plus, it's another normal type, so I can kind of just switch into Ghost moves. 2 normal types, I feel like it's fine. It doesn't resist. It also helps it versus fighting types. So I have 2 normal types that don't really get affected by fighting moves all too much. But yeah. But I'm going to stay on Grafaiai for a bit because I'm going to be talking about one thing that differs from singles to doubles, which is the concept of Terra Captains. Terra Captains are Pokemon that can terrestrialize. Not every Pokemon can terrestrialize. Only Pokemon you appoint as Terra Captains. And as you can kind of guess, Grafaiai is one of my Terra Captains. He can terrestrialize into a Poison, Dark, Flying, and Stellar. I'm pretty sure it's Stellar. I think I read it right. But Poison, I feel like it's just better than normal. Dark and Flying are just decent defensively because they Impact requires only 2 weaknesses, being Psychic and Ground. And also they allow it to be more offensive with its coverage moves, where it could potentially sweep with Unburdened Sword Stance. Potentially. But Grafai is a Pokemon that can do things, but it probably won't be broke most weeks. But it is a Terra Captain, so it can do more things than your average T5 Pokemon. Well, 5-pointer Pokemon. So yeah, I also don't know why it doesn't get Toxic Spikes. This thing feels like it should get Toxic Spikes, but it doesn't. Anyway, moving on to my next Pokemon. So, I wanted Tyranitar, but it went literally right before I was going to pick it. For some unknown reason, someone picked it out of the blue. So I picked the next best thing, which I have used this Pokemon in doubles so much. I love this thing. I chose Hippowdon. Now, Hippowdon can do many things. It's a really physically bulky Pokemon itself. And also, it's kind of fast in game, but let me tell you, this thing is as slow as all can be. But anyway, this thing can also set Stealth Rocks like Excadrill or Mew. It has Recovery and Slack Off. Like, lots of my Pokemon get Recovery, like Suicune has Rest, which isn't reliable, but Arcanine gets Morning Sun, but yeah. I feel like this thing is just going to be a really good defensive ball, plus also it enables Excadrill in the way of it setting Sand for it to either boost its power or boost its speed, which can normally lead to sweeping scenarios, but where it wouldn't be able to without the speed boost. Hippowdon's just a really, really bulky Pokemon that has a lot of utility as well, so it can be offensive, it's good attack stat. Plus also it can set up with things like Iron Defense, Curse. I think it gets Iron Defense. I know it gets Curse and I know it gets Yawn, so it can kind of set up on its own, potentially. Yeah, this thing is a Sand setup, which can also be more on the offensive side. Plus also it's a ground type that can be more defensive than Excadrill. So yeah, I can't really say much. It's Hippowdon. I don't think I need to talk much about why Hippowdon is good. So yeah, on to my next Pocket Monster. Which is... wrong thing. Yeah, it's a Alolan Exeggutor, which was a Pokemon that I loved to pick up. Because I actually love this Pokemon generally, but also what it does to my team. It's another defensive Pokemon, kind of slow, but what it brings to me is the finishers to my Fire Water Grass core and my Dragon Fairy Steel core. Because this thing is memed on by the fact that it's somehow freaking Dragon type. Don't ask me why the heck this thing is Dragon type, but it is Dragon type. So it allows it to have some niche defensiveness. Like, for example, it 4 times resists Grass, Water, and Electric, which are 3 really good offensive types. Well, I don't think Grass is, but Water and Electric are amazing. So having the ability to 4 times resist both is amazing. Plus, being a Grass type which isn't weak to Fire is also really nice. Only downside is that the 4 times weakness to Ice. And also there's a plethora of other weaknesses, like Poison, Flying. Yeah. It's also a Dragon type that doesn't resist Fire. But it has some setup opportunities with Calm Mind, Leech Seed, Sword Stance. It can go physical or special, which is the upside to this over its Kanto counterpart. So yeah. But the main thing that pulls this thing apart from what an average team member is it being my second and final Terra Captain. Yeah, this thing can Terrasilize too, meaning it can Terrasilize into a Dragon, Steel, Electric, and Terra type. Dragon is probably just better offensively and defensively than Grass, so getting rid of that defensive riddled Grass typing is amazing. Plus, it allows it to be more offensive with its Dragon Stab. Steel is more for defensive reasons, as if I believe I am correct in the fact that Steel is all of the weaknesses of Dragon Grass are resisted by Steel, which I feel like is just incredible for this Pokemon, as it allows it to be the defensive behemoth that I want it to be. So, yeah, and Electric is amazing defensively since it's only weak to one thing and includes some resistances to the Grass Dragon typing, and also allows it to be more offensive. So yeah, that's mostly what I have to say about Alolan Exeggutor. On to my last, probably official member. We have the one and only Uber Banned Annihilate. I have used this thing in doubles, and it's amazing, and in singles, it's probably even better. Because Annihilate has a unresistible stab combo of Ghost and Fighting. It has the ability to stop entry hazard removal, like, it forces them to think, do I want to give this thing +2 attack from Defiant if I use the Fog, and it just blocks out Rapid Spin being a Ghost type. It also has the ability to be a fighting type, so it's just really strong. Drain Punch for recovery. It can set up with things like Bulk Up. I mean, what's there not to love about Annihilate? It's defensively, and Rage Fist is just bonkers. If this Pokemon just had Shadow Claw, I feel like it would be manageable, but like Rage Fist, going up to 300 base power on one single move is mental. Like, Last Respects exists, but it's only available on Houndstone, and you have to have most of your team dead, whereas Rage Fist, you just need to tank a hit. So, yeah. Annihilate. What's not best to say? Has a lot of common weaknesses, though, but yeah. Alright, my final Pocket Monster, which is worth 1 point, and mainly here for meme purposes only. We have the God! Nose Pass. Nose Pass. Just Nose Pass. So yeah, this thing can set Stealth Rock, it is sturdy so it can tank 1 hit. Like, what does this thing do, aside from Iron Defense Body Press? Look at this man. You don't expect this man to come every week. He's a 1-pointer. He can set Stealth Rocks, he gets Sand Force, but I don't think it's going to be used. He gets Magna Pull, but he's weak to Steel, so it doesn't matter at all. Yeah, sturdy, Iron Defense Body Press, potentially set Stealth Rocks, Explode. That's basically all it does. It's a rock type. What is this thing even going to do? So yeah, that is my final Pokemon for my first ever singles draft. I'm not sure how this team is going to do. It can do amazing, it can do trash, it can do mediocre. But yeah, I'm kind of excited and also terrified at the same time for this draft. So yeah, that is my draft breakdown for the GLDL Season 9. Let me know if I can improve on anything. Nice criticism, please. Nothing terrible. No, ooh, your audio quality is terrible. Ooh, your video quality is awful. Yeah, don't say those things. But anyway, I'll probably be uploading more draft breakdowns of my doubles drafts as well as also battles from singles and doubles, so if you're into that stuff. First time I'm ever just saying, just subscribe to my channel. I'm not really looking for subs or likes, but I appreciate them. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, pretzels!